Warning: Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander viewers are warned that the following video may contain images of deceased persons, and with all due respects to those who were in Australia first before any colonisation. When one thinks about the Aboriginal people, they automatically connect them to the land, and rightly so. They are a people proud of their connection to the land and its connection to them. They are of the oldest nations in the world and have been around for many centuries. Their identity is in their culture and traditions towards the land. They have lived in Australia, calling it home, for more than 1,000 years. They are also known as the traditional owners of the land. Today we live in Australia and are thankful for the life we have. We appreciate the many cultures and thorough way of life, but unfortunately this result didn't come about without a shameful history. A history that is dark and full of atrocities to people who were in peace and committed no crime. When the first British fleet landed on Aboriginal land in 1788, they declared it terra nullius, which means unoccupied and uninhabited. From then on, British settlement began the darkest stages of Australian history, which included massacres, slavery, and the stealing of land. One can only give an example to explain how Aboriginal people felt when their land was taken, their women were enslaved, and loved ones killed. Picture the connection between a mother and a newborn child. The deep love and special connection between them. Only one who has been in that experience can truly understand. Yet it is common knowledge to know it is deep. Now imagine someone stealing that child away from you and never giving it back. Doesn't it leave you broken? Doesn't it scar you? However, unfortunately for the Aboriginal people, this wasn't just a picture, but a gruesome reality. A reality that brings tears to the eyes and breaks the heart. This meant that children were taken away from their families, even newborn infants, showing a lack of mercy to the mothers who bore them, the fathers that raised them, and even the grandparents who loved them. Their futures and lives decided by a white man, raising them up to become what they thought was proper, and that was to be labourers and servants. A very dark future to look forward to. The Bringing Them Back Home report showed the devastating effects of the stolen generation. Within it, some excerpts I will read. Grief and loss are the predominant themes of this report. Tenacity and survival are also acknowledged. The suffering and the courage of those who have told their stories inspires sensitivity and respect. The laws, policies, and practices which separated Indigenous children from their families have contributed directly to the alienation of Indigenous societies today. For individuals, their removal as a children and the abuse they experience at the hands of the authorities or their delegates have permanently scarred their lives. The harm continues in later generations, affecting their children and grandchildren. When one looks into why governments in the past opted into removing Indigenous children, they claim the idea of providing a better future. When looking into the statistics provided by the report, one can clearly see that no real benefit came from removing Indigenous children from their family. Higher attendance of an education was shown by those who stayed with their families, as well as higher employment rates. Through such thorough statistics, crucial recommendations were made by the report, which showed a shift in policy understanding in how to approach Indigenous people. A change for the better. The horrific approaches that previous Australian governments took towards removing children from Indigenous families and the shift towards recognising such atrocities led to the former Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd to make an official apology in 2008.
Today we honour the Indigenous peoples of this land, the oldest continuing cultures in human history. We reflect on their past mistreatment. We reflect in particular on the mistreatment of those who were stolen generations, this blemished chapter in our national history. The time has now come for the nation to turn a new page in Australia's history by righting the wrongs of the past and so moving forward with confidence to the future. We apologise for the laws and policies of successive parliaments and governments that have inflicted profound grief, suffering and loss on these our fellow Australians. We apologise especially for the removal of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children from their families, their communities and their country.
The Gap strategy was developed in 2008 by the Australian government in consultation with Aboriginal groups as a health-based blueprint to achieve greater equality in outcomes between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people. What does this mean for social workers in practice? Identifying interventions that are designed to help Indigenous people can help provide a more holistic approach to providing better care. Understanding the importance of their culture and the traumatic history they have endured can help begin the process of healing for such vulnerable people. Advocating for better policies and integrating ways to help the Indigenous people mentally, emotionally, physically, and economically give opportunities for them to begin their empowerment journeys. Being able to develop therapeutic relationships and target issues impacting them on a societal level can provide effective ways of assisting them to reach self-empowerment. It is examples such as the ones shown just now that as social workers, if we are able to provide thorough work into forming therapeutic relationships, it will benefit the Aboriginal people. It is known that those who have suffered due to being part of the stolen generation have low employment rates. Being able to identify stresses within their employment environment can help locate problems before they arise to increase their success. This can come in the form of providing thorough cultural education to those that work in the environment, to providing a way for the people who from the stolen generation to cope more with the stresses of the trauma that they have endured, maybe leading to a positive impact, increasing their chances of staying in the employment. Such strategies like these is what social workers need to use in order to holistically approach people from the stolen generation to assist them in practice. Providing counseling and making it accessible can provide a positive influence that can promote positive change. Therefore, as social workers, it is our goal to maintain practice to help such people with traumatic histories to enable them to become self-empowered.